Well, welcome everyone. Welcome back. It's great to have you guys back here for the third time, and we'll welcome you back every time. It's at least for me, it's one of my most fun events for the year. So I look forward to this event a lot. Today actually is a very special day. Besides being Valentine's Day, it's also Aruba's birthday. We were formed exactly 11 years ago, and in 2002. And along with me, I actually have Partha Narasimhan, who's standing out there. He'll be participating with the other presenters today. He is a founding engineer, Aruba fellow, the creator of all things RF at Aruba. So things like ARM, the split MAC architecture that we first came up with, the decision to go do centralized crypto, the decision to use GRE tunneling. All these decisions came from his brain. So I thank him for that, and I'll have him share the rest of his wisdom with you as well. I'm sure he's cooking up a lot of new stuff out there. So just a quick story. 11 years ago, when we started the company, the primary driver behind it was innovation in the networking industry had pretty much stalled. I mean, we had gigabit Ethernet. I went and talked to customers and asked them, what are you looking forward to in your LAN? And pretty much there was nothing. There was people had done fast Ethernet switching. They were looking to gigabit, but there was no real compelling need to upgrade to gigabit at the time. And that's when we felt like maybe there was some things need to change. And the simple observation was with wireless, even though .11b was not ready to replace the wire, we felt that there was something there from an innovation perspective. And it was a career bet for me and for a lot of us to go focus on wireless. And we just felt like not only is there systems innovation, but RF innovation for the next couple of decades, not just for a few years. And 10 years later, it's still true, right? I mean, we're coming up with things like 11AC, which if you think about the physical layer and the MAC, especially the PHY, the complexity of AC just is mind-boggling. So that's going on. Alongside that, there's things like location, which is coming into its own today. I think over the next couple of years, location is going to become extremely important. Software-defined networking. This is another trend that today is primarily focused on data centers. And in the data center, again, if you think about what software-defined networking is trying to address, it's actually virtual machine mobility, moving from one server to another, enabling things like vMotion, having VLANs kind of basically move with the machine. We've been doing that in wireless for 11 years at least, if not longer. And we think we can take some of the newer software-defined network architectures and bring it into the campus network as well, and use that from an innovation perspective and change how unified access for wired and wireless will be in the future. IPv6 is another big trend, and we're seeing that becoming more and more important. And I mentioned this last time when I was here as well. And Partha again can talk a little bit about its impact on network design and network architecture in the next sections as well. So with that, I'll leave you with the rest of the agenda. I think Ozer can walk you through what we have on tap. Thank you very much again, and welcome back.
Thanks, Kirti. Hello, everybody. Again, welcome to everybody. Everybody's doing well. How was the chicken kebab during lunch? Good?
Very good.
Tasty? Okay. You can thank Jeannie for that. She has beer for you too, I think, later in the day. All right, so we have a couple of things in the agenda. First, we're going to start with monitoring Wi-Fi network health, right? So we have more organizations today who have built, designed, deployed Wi-Fi than not, right? Everybody has some sort of a wireless network. The number one question that we started getting during the last 6 months is, I have a little bit of Cisco network here, a little bit of older stuff here, a little bit of Aruba stuff here. I'm also building some branch locations. I just need to know what the hell is going on in the network, okay? So every time, AirWave becomes a very hot topic. AirWave is our network management tool. You're gonna hear about the features and capabilities here. But we thought that we start there. Troubleshooting, help desk views, reporting, wireless security, monitoring, location, the whole 9 yards. So please ask all the tough questions. We value your input about what the product direction is going, what do you want to see. Obviously, a broad topic, something that we may not be able to cover in 90 minutes, but we're going to try anyway. And then we're going to jump into controllers versus not. Okay, obviously we sell both. We have made a lot of traction. We have been selling controller-based wireless LANs for the last 11 years. We started selling controllerless wireless LANs for the last 2-3. And we made a lot of strides during last year, so we're going to share what we have done there. We also came up with our brand spanking new 7200 series controller, so we're going to tell you what that's all about. So we have a little bit of controller-based stuff and controllerless. And then towards the end of the day, after you guys finish your conversation about what you heard today, I think we're going to take the opportunity to turn off the cameras and start talking about futuristic stuff. What's on the roadmap, what we're thinking about, 11AC and that kind of stuff. Okay? Does it sound like a good agenda? In between, we're going to have breaks, beer, cookies, whatever we need to do to keep you guys awake. All right? So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Rob, who's our AirWave expert.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rob. I've actually worked with Aruba Networks for 5 years now. I started in tech support, and then I just recently transferred over into QA. I also put my information up here. I do have a Twitter feed on Mr. Jin Work. It hasn't been active for the last 2 years, so don't be surprised there's nothing on there. With me is also Sujata. She is the product manager for AirWave.
I've been with the AirWave product for 8+ years, pre-acquisition Aruba. Been working with the product and hopefully know everything there is to know about the product, but I can get you the answers if I cannot answer.
Sounds good. So let's go ahead and get started. So all of you actually have a login to log into the AMP. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an overview, and we're going to actually just start attacking how customers go into it. So one of the first scenarios is I have a customer on my network. I know he's on there. I want to find out what's going on with his connection. So we'll use my network name, look for me as a user. This is the quick search pop-up. This is for active clients. And right now, I'm actually on the network right now. And so I can actually drill into my details. With these details, it's going to give you a guide bar right here that shows me what my presence on the network is. So this is the SSID I'm on. This is the API I'm actually connected through, the controller, and then the switch. Other things that we can get are details like what kind of client am I using. This one's actually a Windows 7 laptop, and it knows my MAC address, and it knows my role on the network.
Just to add a few things to what Rob is saying, this is our converged wired and wireless view where you're actually looking at the switch that the controller is actually connected to. So you're seeing all the way from the client to the switch, and it gives you a view into your wireless and then the wired network also. So we're monitoring the switches on AirWave.
And the one thing to note here is that there is a measurement of how good my connection is. Right now I'm getting a fair connection, and it's saying I'm getting too many auth errors. This is an indicator based on a threshold that the admin sets for your network. So for different networks, you may set your thresholds differently. Here's a quick peek at those thresholds. And you have different thresholds for each of your device types. So on the client level, I have 2, auth errors and average SNR score. If you log in with the help desk view, you're not going to have the ability to change the thresholds. Only admin users can actually edit it.
How is that relationship between the controller and the switch managed? Is that I need to go in and configure it, or is that determined via?
This is an upstream device tracking that we know. So we know that this controller talks back to the switch, and the data going through, that's where we can track it back to. This is actually an edge switch. You can actually add even beyond that, like your core switches, and you'll even see more upstream as you go along.
So we use multiple sources for that. Just to add, we use CDP. We use the bridge forwarding table to coordinate these devices.
Is it just Aruba?
I'm sorry?
Is it just Aruba?
So we have, for the switches, you mean? We have inbuilt, we have the Aruba switches, the Cisco switches, the HPs, the Junipers, and then we have a concept of a generic router switch where we can take anything that's in MIB2 and then use that to coordinate on the upstream device.
Because AirWave was vendor.
Correct. It's vendor agnostic as far as that's concerned. And the other thing we also do, and we recommend customers using the switches, is because we were able to coordinate the wired and the wireless on the node side. So we use that as well to coordinate the MAC addresses between the wired and the wireless.
And then giving a little more details here, I actually can show the floor plan I'm actually located on. And there's actually a small icon right here in the bottom left corner that shows, I don't know if you guys can see it right down there. It shows where my client is. So right now I'm in the corner of the EBC right now. The other thing is that these graphs over here, they actually can give a history view. So I can see what my connection was for a day, 5 days, a month, a year. I'm usually in the lab, so that lab is cut off from being on the actual network. And then if I also look through, I can actually click on the SSID view, and it'll take me up the stream. And I can see this is for anyone who's been connected on this SSID. And I can go back to the AP and keep going backwards into the drill down. And so sometimes you'll note that you'll see like a drop in your graph, and that's where you can find maybe that's your problem device. Maybe it's the access point, maybe it's the controller, maybe it's even the client.
Just a quick interruption, Rob. Is this kind of the information you're looking for? Are we in the right direction? Please feel free to stop us if you think you want to dig into something detailed.
All right. And we're going to go into the next view, which is actually the RF performance attack. So same thing like the search, you can drill down as far as you can. This just gives you a new starting point. Instead of just having a username or a MAC address or an AP, you can start with the clients and say, maybe we have low SNR. So we can start by clicking on this. And here we can see all the clients have low SNR. Oh. Let me go back into there. So my screen's going to cut it off. I can't really scroll right now, but I can at least click on a client from here and drill into there from here again. From this view, I can also click back to the client detail. On the client detail, this is actually going to be all the historics on that client. So you're going to be able to see like what type of client is again. We can see their past connections and how they've been authenticated into the network. And you can even see if there were traps that were associated to those clients. You can even find like logs that were based on those clients. We're going to go one more path, and that's going to start with visual RF. So visual RF is the location probability for AirWave. We're going to show you, based on where your access points are and the signal strength that we hear the clients on, that's going to place clients on a floor plan. So we're in 1344. Here's my floor plan. So right now there's actually a lot of noise right here. So what I can always do is I can always change the display, hide some of the noise. And I can search for my user. And I'm in the corner here. And if I click, I can focus on the client. So this tells me that I'm connected to this AP, but also these other APs hear me from where I'm standing. And I can either go into the AP or I can go further into the client again. It'll take me just back to where I was before. And so it's all interconnected, and you can customize thresholds based on your network, and it's very very flexible in that way.
Are you able to import PDFs?
Yes.
One of the issues I find is I get vector and raster mixed up, but if you're importing JPEGs, obviously you've got to have fairly high resolution of them when you've got fairly large floor plans, so if you can actually put a PDF in there directly.
Exactly. Yeah, when you do PDFs though, the one thing to know is that we only take the first page, so if you have a multi-page PDF, you want to break it down per floor plan.
Sure.
Can you go back to the map that showed everybody
Yep.
on the floor plan? And then you're done. What are those green lines between?
So the green lines are actually, they're the connectivity. So this is on the 5 gigahertz bandwidth. You also have a yellow line that you can hardly see. The yellow line here is for both the 5 and the 2.4. And then the green line will be just the 2.4.
And this,
Or no, the blue line is the 2.4.
and it's also busy because there are multiple relation lines you can have. You can have an associated AP relation line. You can have a neighbor AP line, so an AP to AP. You also have a neighbor client line where the client is being heard by other APs. So it can, kind of get busy, but you can, tune that down
So
too.
you're just showing that client is associated to that access point over a 5 gigahertz.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And we
what
estimate
sync-
the location based on the data we hear from other access points. So you need at least 3 APs, preferably in like a triangle shape for better location calculation. If you do it in a straight line, there's a 50-50 chance that you're going to be on the left side or the right side.
Right.
And I'm actually going to log out my user here. I'm going to log back in as a help desk user. And the difference here is that, so when I log in with my corporate login, because we're doing LDAP auth on the AMP, it's going to log in to the LDAP one first to check for users. Then it checks the local database, which is why it takes a little bit longer to log in. And so here, this is the help desk user. So this is, if you have maybe like a university and they have students who are interning, you might give them this view instead of giving like an admin view. That way they can't go and spy or stalk on any of their friends. You're kind of limiting them what they can see. So they're not even able to click on any of these shortcut buttons on the top. It's mostly driven from the pie charts. You can do the pie charts or you can do a search. And so you can get the same users off of here. You can limit it down, searching for MAC address. That wasn't my MAC address. 54 was mine. Okay, so you can get the same view, and it takes you to this as a captive view. And this view is the same as like an admin user can get, but what the help desk user doesn't get is he doesn't get the historical on that client, but he does get a sense of it via the graphs here. So they can still see like the history of the data back to a day or 5 days. I was on for a little bit, about 2 days ago.
So the help desk view is essentially to simplify, because AirWave has a lot of tabs. It's confusing as to what we should be doing. For a help desk view, it's simple. You get an overview of the network, but you're able to search for the client when you get a call from someone to say, hey, I'm having a bad connection, or I'm having issues pushing traffic. Yes?
Anything on the roadmap to go HTML rather than Flash?
Actually, it is in the works right now. That's happening. All this is part of the high charts. We moved away from the Flash graphs. We are in the process of moving our graphs and also the visualization aspect of it.
And the other thing I want to just show you right here is like normally on the bottom right, we saw that I had a threshold button there where I could tune it when I was the admin user. This is the help desk user. He does not have access to that threshold. And I'm going to switch back out.
Any questions while Rob's switching over? Anything? Yes.
I'm looking for a Cisco alternative. And with that being said, does this integrate with an MSC?
It does not integrate with the MSC. We use our own VisualRF is our MSC, unlike Cisco, which has the MSC on a dedicated appliance. We run VisualRF on its own. What we can do is for Cisco, we can import their floor plans from WCS, and you can use AirWave for the visualization. We don't consume any data feed from the MSC.
And how is this priced?
This is priced on device count. So you can buy as many devices as you have, and an AP, a controller, and the switch all count as one device. We want to keep it as simple as possible. We don't charge per interface or anything. Every device counts as a device count license.
Any other questions? All right, I'm going to move on. We're actually going to take a look at VisualRF planning. And so here I'm going to actually right-click, create a new campus.
Australia's on the map.
Kiwis now that
Here's a new building. And then I can do a new floor plan. And so this is actually a wizard that takes you through the floor plan upload. just going to do a rough one really quick. And here you can actually give details like floor number. This might be the 5th floor. You can change the name. It might be the gym. And you can change the ceiling height and the floor height. And we can save and close that. And so here's my new floor plan. And then in here, to do planning, you can actually do, there's a few methods. You can do manual, which is if you edit, floor plan's already unlocked. And I can add plan devices. And it's as simple as dragging and dropping. So I can just drag an AP, drop it on the floor plan, choose what kind of radio it's going to have. So I might just have a 5 gigahertz radio, and then it's placed right there. You can just keep repeatedly doing that, and then you can toggle the overlay for heat map, and you can do it based on that. Or the other way that I normally do it is, let me delete the planned. I'm going to draw a region. And it's location probability. Nope, planning right here. And in this planning, you can actually select the AP type that you want. So here we'll do an AP 105. And you can designate how you want to plan the coverage. So you can do coverage by speed overall in the whole floor plan for that region, or by signal. So I would say maybe negative 50. And I can do that. Give it a minute and it'll render.
You didn't have to put the walls in?
Huh? I didn't bother putting walls in, but you can do it at the same time when you do the region.
And can you specify your own loss, your own attenuation for the walls, or is it just fixed?
Yeah, it's actually right here on the bottom left. There's it's an environment attenuation right there. So a lot of the attenuation will be recalculated when we actually see the real data from AP to AP noise. And so it calculates.
Is this a plan? This is for planning?
Yeah, this is for planning right here.
Right.
Yeah.
So
But-
we normally recommend that you draw the outside walls, and the inside is taken care of because we take actual AP to AP data and AP to client data, and that compensates for the HUD
And if you
signal.
were using this as part of a pre-survey, you wouldn't have that.
For the
data.
Yeah.
Right, and that's why you have the kind of environment you have, and you can tweak that environment
Can
too.
you specify that it's a RTLS design and it will place the APs on the perimeter, or there's voice and it will obviously take that into account?
You can do based on the voice on this planning. Can you
No,
specify
not
the
by voice.
But you could specify by the data rate and the signal that you want. On the actual visual RF, you can look at the voice coverage on it and then go back and add APs.
What about, obviously, the placement, like you mentioned before, for RTLS is going to be different as a standard data, and it'll take that into account if you're using it for planning.
Currently not. Currently.
Yeah, this is normally for planning if you haven't had any APs already placed on the floor plan before. And so you can see, so my first one, I really asked for a really strong signal strength. It placed a lot of APs in that little region. So let me actually clear all that. We're going to reprovision this. We're just going to say by number of APs, let's do 5 APs. And here, when you're doing this, even with the live floor plan, you can click on an AP, right-click with it, and there's a simulate failure. And it'll show you where your heat map is still covering. And so it's the white space that you want to make sure you cover. And a lot of people always look for redundancy. And that's where ARM also helps with the controllers, where it'll cover the holes in your coverage somewhat by flexing the channels that you're on.
So how does this information get back into the ARM algorithm?
This information doesn't. These APs get matched with the deployed APs, and then the ARM is working, and this information is reflect. What he's actually saying is there's a certain amount that planning takes care of, and above and beyond that, ARM takes care of it. With
But there's
the
no interface between them.
No.
currently, it's only visibility.
Yeah, this is predictive piece. And that was it for planning. So now we can actually go into reports.
Any questions on planning or visualization?
So with the reports,
So one question, once you've done your planning, what sort of format can you export that to into a report?
you can come out like in a BOM, a bill of materials report, and that's usually a Word format. And then from there, you can PDF it, you can convert it to Excel if you need to.
And the good part is there is a feature where you do the planned APs, you generate the BOM, you give it to the installer, and then you add the APs into AirWave, and then AirWave will automatically match those APs. So either you give a name or a MAC address, and you can match it up. You don't have to go and match the planned device to the deployed device.
So the reporting, here we go. We're going to take a look at how you can add a report. And so when you're adding a report, the first view you look at is a custom report. Maybe if you're starting out, you don't want to really start with a custom report. You may just want to start with one of the canned reports. So there's simple ones where like there's the Aruba license, and each report definition feature has its own set of restrictions that you can use. So this will cover all groups, select groups, all folders, select folders. And you can even filter on certain things like, say, filter on only devices that have this MAC address.
The folders is a concept to AirWave, which is kind of either location-based or people use it as a building-based. Any which way you want to kind of separate by functionality or by location, you can use folders, and folders are hierarchical, and they're also mapped to the roles or the user-based. So it's a role-based visibility you can have in AirWave with the folders.
And some of the most used reports are actually going to be things like the inventory report, where it's going to give you an inventory of your network devices. So it's going to be your access points, your controllers, your switches, everything that AMP sees. Another one is going to be the client session report. This can be a very verbose report if you want, and give you every detail about every session that's ever happened for that period of time. The bonus is that in 7.7, you're actually going to be able to have the ability to export that as a CSV or as a PDF. And so when you have that ability, you can also email it to your inbox, so that you don't always have to log into AMP to get your report. So if you look at your reports maybe like once a month, it'll just show up in your inbox when you're ready to look at it.
Can you already email reports?
You
Yeah.
can. Currently, email is done with HTML and PDF, and CSV is kind of the new feature. But a lot of our customers tend to don't give all their users access into AirWave, but they use them for emailing reports, taking that CSV, tweaking it as they like, and so that's part of it.
And the export for CSV and PDF comes as an attachment. So if you need to forward it to someone else, they can easily see it without having access to the actual AMP. So we're actually going to look at a few of the reports that have been generated. So here is, let's see here. We're going to look for a RF health. So the RF health report is actually a newer report. And what it does is it's going to help you with your planning, or if you're trying to expand your current deployment, or if you're trying to rearrange things on how they're going. So like here, it's going to show you things like channel changes. This AP has had 42 channel changes in this report period. That either means that one, there are too many APs really close together, or two, another AP could just be broadcasting a stronger signal that's overriding what this AP is actually doing.
Or there's an interference source in the neighborhood that it's constantly trying to change the channel in that neighborhood.
Can you run a report to see how many clients have been band steered? Can you run a report to see how many clients have been band steered?
Currently not. That's coming up in the future.
We can also go back to the reports here for a client session.
You kind of get that information indirectly because you see the association history of the client, but you don't directly say this is because of band steering, and that's what we're trying to get in the future.
Yeah,
Just to extend
if
that.
you can run a report, it's a good indication to see if it's actually working and how many clients it's working for.
It's
so.
Yep.
yeah, that's exactly true.
And so for this client session report, this is actually just the summary of report. where we didn't include all the details. If you actually include all the details, you're going to get another table that shows X user logged in, how was he authorized onto the network, what SSID he connected to. This is just a lump sum saying that there were 25,000 sessions during this report period. The report period was from the 11th to the 12th, so it's a one-day period. And we had 0 guest users, but it was 1,600 unique users. And so,
Do you have a way of running a report against like a certain user and finding out what network gear that they've logged into and how long they were logged
Yes.
in and what changes they made and stuff?
you can run a report that way, or you can actually just do the search for that user.
Okay.
And once again, look for their client historical page. So this client detail page. And if I look at this client, so this is myself, I can see every access point that's heard me and every access point I've authenticated to on the network.
Does it show like a controller or something that you would have logged into on the network, possibly?
A
The-
controller?
Like if you were going to manage some sort of piece of hardware that AirWave knew about and you logged into it, does it show that?
An audit of
Yeah,
configuration
right,
audit is what
right.
you're looking for.
Oh yeah. So we have a configuration audit, and it depends on how you set up your users and your roles. Because if I do it as the admin user, no one really knows that I actually did it because there might be 10 other admin users. So it's suggested that you always use like unique users between people. Yep.
And if I'm not mistaken, you can also do like alerting on devices that have been lost or stolen.
Yep.
By MAC
Yep.
address. So if they pop up again, you send a report.
Yeah. So what you can actually do is, that's the next section that I was about to get into. So if you go to System, and there's triggers here, these are basically alerts that you manually make to tell you, hey, things are going on in my network. This is the proactive side. So this is where you can say, if I get a new rogue and it's a score of X or higher, and it's reported as definitely a rogue by my controllers, let me know. You can also say here like things where if my AMP hard drive fills up 80% or higher, let me know so I can clear off my AMP hard drive space so that my AMP will still be in a good state. Other things.
Can you edit one of those alerts?
Yeah, so let's actually look at here. I actually have a connected client alert right here.
Which is what I think Lee was kind of referencing if a client connects back.
So here, this is a client alert where if this client ever logs into my network and he just happens to be me, send me an alert. So if I look at my alerts tab, I'm actually going to be able to search. So I've been on the network several times today. And so depending on what you're doing, you might be trying to track down a lost laptop. You might be trying to track down a user who might have stolen it or misplaced their laptop. And as long as they're on the network, you can be able to find that device.
Can you go back one screen to see what the options were on
On the trigger.
Oh, you want to go back on the trigger?
Yeah.
Here we go. So this is the connected client one. You actually have several other alert types. So let me actually go back to triggers, and I'll do a fresh add here. So you can do things like a device down trigger. That one's very highly used. The other thing with that is that if your controller goes down, you can have it where your access points that go down on that controller don't all alert you, so you're not spammed with like 500 emails.
You're basically trying to limit how many alerts you're getting. The other good part about this is that we also do when upstream device is down. For example, if your switch is down, you don't want to be getting an alert for every single 10 AP connected to that switch. So we have a provision to do that. So if your upstream device is down, don't send an alert for every 10 AP that's connected behind it. So that reduces the number of alerts they get and the number of alerts they have to act upon by customers. These alerts also, the device down does get used a lot in terms of both the correlation, event correlation that we do with the alerts and just being a serious. And you can set different severities based on the kind of device it is. An AP to a controller is far like a critical severity to an AP, which is major, minor, and that can be provisioned.
One of the ones I like to point out is like the AP usage trigger here. And so what happened here was you can have a trigger instead of duration. So it has to exist for 5 minutes. And that way, that's when it'll send me an alert after 5 minutes of existing in my network. Not every trigger has this constraint, but it helps out for the ones that do.
The client count might be a good one.
Yeah, we can do a client count. So here's a client count trigger. And so you can actually add several conditions here. Looks like there's only one right here, which is which device type it is.
Right.
But you also have the duration and the limit by.
So the limit by is a new feature that we added in AirWave, where previously you could do only based on the AP, but now you can do based on the BSSID. So it's essentially saying if I have 16 more clients on EtherSphere WPA2 on the 5 gigahertz radio, then send me an alert, or the 2.4 gigahertz, because you're trying to find issues with the 2.4 gigahertz spectrum and not the 5. So you can get to that detail on these triggers.
And when you change the limit by, it does change the conditions that you're able to use. So before I only had the device type, now it's giving me radio type and SSID.
All these can be sent as emails, these triggers. They're also sent for integration with other NMS systems as traps. V1, V2, V3 traps can be sent to the external NMS. So kind of like an integration where customers have their own NMS system like CA Spectrum or something, they can integrate AirWave into it.
So if I go back to triggers and I show my connected client trigger again, I actually had that one configured to email myself. And here, oh, there's Girl Scout cookies. Here's the connected client trigger. This is what it actually outputted. It tells me a link, and if I have access to the AMP, I can actually click into the link. It tells me the folder hierarchy and the group that the devices are actually living in. And this is the location. So this is actually the floor plan that I'm on. And this was my own note that I put in there. So you can do different things. If you have different clients, you can say, oh, this client is a stolen laptop, let me know. This client, I just want to know when they pop on the network to see if they're connected. So that might be like a CEO or a principal or someone high up that you want to just keep track of to make sure that they always have good connectivity when they're on your network.
Can you do configuration actions based off of notifications like that? Or if a client comes on, can you say route them through to an interesting captive portal so that they keep, if it's stolen and you keep forcing them to have issues and they keep moving around trying to get on, you can keep getting updates from them, keep knowing where they are.
Currently, it's not integrated into the configuration. It's in a matter of you receive your alerts and then you act upon it. There are some things that are kind of driven off the alerts. One is not just alerts, but kind of an automated action, which is the rogue side on the containment. You can actually set up your rules to be able to classify a device as a contained rogue, which essentially will push that containment setting to the APs in order to contain the rogue. But we are looking at something like that, but you want to make sure that you have the right visibility and the access level when those actions happen.
Along those same lines, if you're actually looking at connectivity between the AMP and devices, let me just drill back here to a controller. So if I go to a controller and the AMP has knowledge of your telnet SSH, or at least the community string, you're able to run some commands from the AMP that you don't have to log into the controller's actual CLI for. So here I can run a command saying, maybe show AP active, and it will output it in a new window for you where you can actually see it.
So this is essentially making a tunnel, SSH tunnel to the controller logging in. And the advantage is that you're not teaching your help desk and your engineers two different interfaces, or go to the controller, type this command. Rather, you're running everything from an AirWave console. That makes the workflow easier.
Can you configure those commands that you sent, or is it just a predefined list?
This is a predefined list currently, and it's kept up with the Aruba software versions.
Speaking of Aruba's configuration part that's in this, it's completely different from the Aruba controller itself. You want to make it more similar so that the way you interact with the AirWave configuring the Aruba controller is the same as what you would do on a controller.
We're working, there are a couple of initiatives with that. One is to simplify configuration itself in terms of not just on the controller on AirWave, but being able to simplify how an end user configures. And the second thing is to be unifying these two UIs to make configuration the same experience. To that extent, we are coming up with the IAP, the controllerless configuration in the next release, which looks identical to the that platform with the GUI config. If you've kind of familiar with that. So that's our first step, and then we're moving towards the controller side.
And the next major feature that we're going to go into is Rapids. If you guys have any more questions about the able to run commands on controller option. All right, so we're going to dig into Rapids a little bit here. The first thing about Rapids is going to take up two different knowledge bases here. It's going to have one, its own classification of devices, and then two, it's going to take Aruba's controller classification. So you can either decide if you want to match it on AirWave and create your own rules in AirWave to reclassify things, or if you want to just trust what the controller decides and have it done from one place or the other. So we're going to take a look here at the list. And the list is always a top-down list. So right now it's only going to show rogues. If I go to suspected rogues, it'll show me suspected rogues and rogues. And within here, once you've actually detected the rogues, you actually click in and you can reclassify them as you need to. So here's the override. You can either update things like names, notes about the rogue. Like I went and I found that this rogue was plugged into a professor's desk, or this was from someone's cube. You had a question?
Yeah, do you have the ability to do a wildcard string so that basically you can say that all of the 2-wire SSIDs are not, or like friendly rogues are not a problem and don't alert me on them? Because they always change their names at 2-wire and numbers.
Yeah. So you can actually create a rule that does that. So in here, in Rapids, so there are rules, and it's a top-down rule system. So if it's coming down the list and it hits a rule that actually applies, it stops there. And so with these rules, you can actually just drag and drop them into the order that you want them to process through.
So can you set up a rule that will, and maybe this is on the controller, but because there's such a crazy amount of rogues now, you don't care about anything that's neg 85 or neg 90 or
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you, yeah.
There are rules here where you can just say, hey, this rule might just say suspected rogue, and then just ignore all suspected rogues. Or you can say valid, or however you want to set your ignored state to be. Let's see here. So we're going to say signal strength is the condition I want it set. And if I say if it's negative between negative 90 to negative 120, that's going to be the bucket that's going to throw it into. Most of the time when you're creating these rules, you want to create your most specific rules for things that are valid first. That way the valid things don't get in the way. And then you create your most specific rules for things that you know, like hotspot, like there's a Starbucks across the street, my network sees it, that's a known rogue. You can do things like KVM switches that are in your wired. What else?
What about the one thing that was never really done well in WCS and Cisco was tracing rogues on the wire, and I realize it's not something that's easy to do, but is
There's an upstream correlation. So like you'll know whichever devices know about that rogue from when we get it from their CDP and their bridge forwarding tables.
So those switches obviously have to be in.
Yeah, they have to be
They have
in
to be.
AirWave for us to get that data.
The Aruba controllers also give us the whether the device is connected to the wired or not. That information is also fed from the Aruba controllers into AirWave.
Is that the
If you
main
don't-
way that it traces, attempts to trace rogues is via looking at MAC address tables and the BSSID?
That's for wired rogues. I mean, if you have wireless rogues that are seen on the SSIDs, then you also have your neighboring APs that are going to hear it and they're going to report back. So like, they'll say, I hear about this SSID. I don't know this guy.
Yeah, but
Report
I mean,
back.
obviously that's where the other rule comes in as well, because you've got so many rogues.
Yeah.
But the difficulty that I've seen, I don't think I've ever successfully traced a rogue down to a switchboard where it's actually said.
If you-
It's on your wide network.
Can you go to there is a rogue that's seen both on the wired and the wireless, and if you drill down into the rogue, you can actually see a history of discovery events, and one of them will be the switch and the port that it's reported on. So that's how, to that level, that you can actually drill down into. So you can click on one
So
of
these are
those.
rogues that are found both wirelessly and on the wired.
And if you go down to the discovery events, I think you should be able to.
So this has to have a presence in every VLAN essentially, or every switch. to be able
Every
to-
switch has to have its presence in AirWave so that we can read the VLAN table, the tables from there.
Or the controller has to know.
I'm sorry?
Or the controller has to
but you're not going to be putting every VLAN in your network with troubleshooting, you know? I mean, just for it to give it that capability.
Partha probably has something to add.
It's sufficient to actually place APs without if you have 10 VLAN, as long as you have people on EP and those are the guys that are going to collect the information. It's useful for you. You need to drill down to the switchboard, then yes, you need to run the switchboard.
Oh, there's one more. I think you had a question about two-wire OUIs. I think, I'm sorry, I'm not certain.
No, it's okay, yeah.
If you open one of the rules, I just wanted to show what you can do is, we have two ways. We actually update our OUI table every release with the new OUI scores that come in. And you can also set a OUI if you go into the manufacturer and you add a rule on the add rule thing. Yeah. So if you go into the manufacturer, you can actually say two-wire, and we'll be able to take the OUI scores that we attribute to the two-wire and use that to, say, exclude all the two-wire APs. That's how you do it. And all these are integrated. The Rapids is also integrated in the triggers and the reports. So you can get the new devices report every day, every week, and you'll get triggers based on the threat level and the classification for these rogues.
So with the new deep packet inspection code that was released with the AppRF, are you actually going to be able to get more information for this engine out of that information that is
With
gathered?
Rogue specifically, or you're talking about clients?
With the Rapids specifically.
With the Rapids specifically. We'll probably be getting more on the client devices and not the Rogue devices. But I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in. Those are.
Okay, so can we repeat the question?
I'm just wondering how much AppRF is going to feed into the information that AirWave is actually able to gather from clients and from seeing what clients are interacting with in the network.
Yeah, so, I mean, today the AppRF information is in the AirWave system, or at least within a month or two. The client level information, I think, there's several things that we're going to talk about at 4 o'clock. So maybe we leave that there. There's quite a bit coming. So has to do with the gathering information from the clients, working with the controllers, APs, quite a bit of innovation. So, but I think it will be good to show
The RF dashboard, yeah. This is kind of getting a sneak peek into what's coming up, but we'll be able to show you some of it. Did you have anything else on that?
I was going to show one more thing. It was top of my head here. Oh yeah, okay, so let me do this first. Go back here, AP. So the one thing here that I want to note is that if you're in a folder, the customizability of AirWave has always been one of its great success stories. And so when you're looking at devices, sometimes it can be daunting to say, okay, I don't want to update every device in this folder or in this group, so I just want to select a few. So maybe I can toggle a few right here and do things like, oh, I just want to report on this, and you can run a report based on it. I can pull those devices now. I can actually audit just those devices because I made a change to them. Or I can switch just those devices into managed mode so a config gets pushed to those devices from AirWave. This is a big thing because a lot of people like to do bulk editing of their networks, but they don't always want to do it, at 9 o'clock at night. So you can also schedule those things. There's a scheduling right, where to go? It's like when you set.
Audit, you'll get a choice.
Let's see if I go to audit. Here's the scheduling right here. I can say when I want to actually schedule that action to happen. And if I go back to the actual device again, if I just click on any AP, there's a history of all activity that AMP's done with that device. And so here's the recent amped events. This is all done by the user, the system user. And if I go to the audit log here, this will tell me that, oh, Sujatha here made a config change, or Gamma Jury also made a change. He said it, and then he undid his change. And so that's how you can kind of track what admin users are actually doing, as long as you set them as different users unique from admin. Let's get into some of the newer stuff. So here's a look at what AppRF is going to give data to AMP in 7.7.
This is a very early alpha, by the way. We are still working on it towards a released version.
What we're actually seeing here is that these are the top 3 destinations that clients in our network in this folder range are actually navigating to. So they're navigating to this IP address, which is untranslated, but they're also navigating to Gmail and Amazon. And you can see how much they're doing. And if that top site changes, you'll actually see variations in this table up here above it.
So you're looking at making this very similar to the dashboard interface that's on the controllers as well?
There will be some similarities with it, most of the drill down screens, but what we want to emphasize in AirWave is the historical trending, which the controller is going to have real-time information, and AirWave is going to focus on the real-time trending, and that's why we have a graph kind of to do, but most of the drill down screens and everything is the same, similar to the controller. The other thing also that AirWave gives you is the location-based thing, location-based visibility, so that a controller has its APs, but AirWave will actually say, if I want my New York campus to my San Francisco campus, I can actually drill down and look at the data. So those are the 2 things we want to highlight on the AirWave side.
And then you also see the top 3 on the application layer. So Link is being used widely, Gmail, and then the Apache service. So there's a lot of web browsing going on.
This is essentially NetFlow routine, I guess.
I'm sorry? This is
essentially like NetFlow functionality.
Yeah.
it is like where the data comes in, the session data comes in, and then AirWave parses through the data and then shows the data. Exactly.
If I go into my client here,
Top 3 destinations.
so you'll actually see right here, we have top 3 destinations on the client diagnostic view. And that's where it's going to tie in between the pages.
It's kind of light, I think. With the lighting, it's kind of hard to see, but.
And then another new feature that's going to be up and coming is anomaly detection. And here, what we're going to do is you're going to see trending. So right now, the first take at it was we did a 40-week take. And so in 40 weeks, you're going to get this as your middle line as your average. And you got 2 standard deviations above and below. And so you can kind of see if we're in range or if we're not. So right now, we're actually seeing low user counts for what we normally have over time. This will be useful for something like a school district where, hey, all my students are gone during the summer. I expect to see a blank on that part of the graph. Then when school's back in session, I expect to see the graphs jumping again.
So we kind of want to use this data to help you get proactive triggers. You know, if there's an anomaly in my network, there are too few users or too many users, I want to be alerted on it. I want to be able to react to it.
I think that was it. You guys have any more questions?
I see on the data sheet two models, right? Full appliance and enterprise. Is it also available on the real side as a virtual?
Yeah, so we do have a virtual image. The only thing is that it's scalability on that one, because with the VMs, you always have the VM overhead. And so when you try to size your hardware, you always want to do about 20% over what we suggest is your minimum. The other thing about VMs is that if you don't set a priority on the AMP, then AMP is basically an I/O hog. We want to write constantly to the database. So if you give us a lower priority than like something else that's going to use that resource, we're going to tank a bit because we're not going to be able to keep up with what we normally do. We're always constantly polling for more information. We're constantly trying to process inbound traps coming from your devices. We're constantly trying to keep up with, clients joining and unjoining from the network.
So you essentially want to give enough resources to it, and sometimes disk IOPS is a challenge based on the number of applications you run.
Yeah.
But we do have customers who run on VM installations. We also support HyperV. We have customers who run on that. So.
Yeah, we've done lots of
Yeah, the one other
What's
thing
that?
that
I'm sorry.
Whoop.
We installed lots of them.
Lots of.
Yeah, one of the other things is that with the VM, sometimes some people don't get the hardware IOPS that they normally need. So what they've done is they've actually attached a SAN and mounted that into their amp setup. And that's actually proven to be one of the better working models.
Did I hear you correctly? You said that HyperV is supported?
HyperV is supported. There has to be a little manipulation because of the Microsoft. You have to select a network adapter or something. You can change it.
Yeah, you use the
And
legacy
then
network adapter.
Legacy network, and it installs fine and
Is that
works.
something new?
Okay.
I don't think we've actually officially announced it ever. It's just like when customers ask us, we actually help them out.
'Cause I remember about a year and a half ago trying to get it to work on HyperV and not being successful. So
Yeah.
that would be,
We've updated our install guide and we've assisted customers with the installs. I think we will come out with, yeah.
Yep.
Do you have any big customers that you can talk about, back to George's point, that have dumped NCS and gone to AMP and been happy with it, or been AirWave and been happy
Not
with
me.
We've had a couple of customers. I'm trying to think. We have Intel who uses AirWave for both Cisco and Aruba. And we've had a number of customers where Cisco and Aruba are in the network, and they're using that to manage. I'm not sure if we're allowed to disclose any specific customers or.
Well, I mean, I can give you a couple of names. So, for example, higher ed is big in using AirWave. A lot of customers there across the board, across globally. The reason that they usually prefer it is because traditionally they had the issue of course, managing a big campus and multi-generation of Cisco Aruba products, and they just want to be able to have a single pane of glass. I think AirWave traditionally has done a better job of going after those type of deployments and presenting information this way, detailed, a lot of customized reporting, a lot of more different monitoring options, etc. Before Cisco was able to pull things together from a wired and wireless management perspective. So I think they, AirWave always had a leg up. When they integrated with Aruba in 2007, the exposure to bigger campuses increased. So high tech became an important portfolio. Retail, a lot of good customers. We can talk about offline what those names are and what they're doing. But I can tell you that a good portion of Cisco's largest wireless LAN customers, Motorola's largest wireless LAN customers, HP's wireless LAN customers, they tend to prefer AirWave because the whole tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 model and getting to the information that you want in the right way is just great for them. Even if they use their own management platforms to configure it, they tend to prefer AirWave. Hopefully it happens that way because it helps us, but traditionally it has been that way.
So I was going to ask, and you pretty much answered it. I can see that monitoring and reporting can be done by a third-party tool, but it sounds like it would be pretty difficult to do configuration management, particularly with a new release of new code. You'd have to be on the ball to keep up. So can you do any configuration management of other vendors then?
On the vendors, we do Cisco WLAN configuration management, and we have customers using it, using the WLAN management. And we have, those are the two things we focus on, is Cisco configuration and Aruba configuration, and for the rest of them, we focus on the monitoring aspects of it.
So there'd obviously be some sort of lag when Cisco releases new WLC code, the new Prime or NCS code is happening the same day often. Obviously there'd be a bit of a lag.
There will be a lag, and we also do it based on the customer request, so we respond to our customers faster, and if they want something, we're able to.
Generally aren't rolling out the latest code when it's released, hopefully. So probably not a big deal.
So effectively, you can push templates out to controllers.
Yep.
From AirWave. But one thing I've noticed, especially with WCS, like not all the nerd knobs are there, right? So the controller might show these extra functionalities, but when you go into the template, they're not there. So I imagine the same would be true with the
usually what happens is we end up pushing the default value to them, which means like no change.
And most of the time, getting back to what Lee was asking is, we keep up with the multi-vendor aspects. We had the wired, converged wired and wireless even 3 years back in terms of AirWave giving you visibility into the switches and giving you that converged view. We've had this for a while, showing you the visibility on wired and wireless, which NCS kind of came up with in the last year or so.
And is the location tracking based on RSSI? Is that part of the package, or do you have to pay extra for that?
It's part of the package. Like I said, it's a base license which is entirely based on device count. Visual RF comes with it. The Rapids module comes with it. We've simplified it and have it just as an AMP package,
But
just
for
based on
that,
device.
Cisco licenses for the location stuff, Cisco licenses like per track device. Do you have similar?
No, we just, everything's based on the number of APs. And so all that device license counts. So if the APs have 20 clients to 200 clients, you're pretty much getting it part of the package.
So I guess the other question then, so if AirWave is licensed per AP, are there other different tiers? Is there a sort of a base license?
Yes. Well, the tiers as far as the device count goes, and we kind of gear towards how much is supported on a single server, and then we have something that scales across multiple servers. And so you can, if you have more than 4,000, 5,000 APs, then you would have multiple servers kind of managing different parts of your network.
License for features and then more advanced level.
It actually gets cheaper as your device count.
Device counts.
Yes, device counts, and it gets cheaper as you go into the higher device counts. Yes.
Yeah, the big thing about AirWave is that it's always been customer driven. So a lot of the features that you're actually seeing are things that customers actually ask for. So like the PDF reporting is one. The logout button is another one. The RF health report, that was also another request. Even the colors of our graphs were requested. So we really take on what customers ask, and it's the Aruba motto where it's customers first, and we build on that.
So what was the website that we used for the feature request, Rob?
You actually go to the support.arubanetworks.com, and you go through the ideas portal to submit requests through the system.
And the customers get to vote on it too. So then the more customers and the points increase on the feature, it gives us good visibility. We encourage our customers to enter the ideas because we can hear from them rather than any salesperson in between. So we understand the use case and we're able to, develop a feature that's actually useful to them.
What about mobile device access? Are you looking to, because this is very flash intensive and flash needs to die very quickly.
We are working towards it as fast as we can with the, all this is going to go away with the flash. We're going to have high charts replacing it. We're going to replace the visualization module from flash, and then we're going to do some more enhancements for the mobile devices in order to be friendly with it. We've come to the no flash world finally. It is, yes. And we've already done the campus and the building part. We're just doing the floor plans. And so we're halfway through it.
Yeah, to give you a good idea, so the way that these two toolbars look right now, they've always been like that as long as I've been part of the company. But if you click into our performance, this is kind of the new look and feel where you're getting this kind of colorful outlook. It's not just so bland.
It's all about the
I think I would like that for Aruba Border too.
Okay, guys, so for the sake of time, I think we're going to start to wrap the AirWave discussion. So let me get some tops, comments. What do you think? I mean, as I said at the very beginning, we're proud of the AirWave platform. It's a platform that's older than Aruba itself. It's managing large networks out there. People, some people have a hate and love relationship, just like they do with many other management systems. We see more love relationships than hate. So what do you think? What did you think of what you've seen on positive and negative notes so that we know what we need to focus on?
The new interface here, I really like the way these graphs are.
Okay, so the new interface is good.
It's really a huge and very nice update.
And I like on the map where you can say, just show me the wireless that's dealing with this one specific client where it turns off all of the other AP's heat maps. That's cool.
Okay. That's good. What do you guys think of the integrating location,
management.
Being able to show the globe, and then so I assume you've got your different offices in different cities. You drill down. That's
Yep.
instead of just using a menu system. Pretty
Okay.
useful.
It's logical, it's what you'd expect it to do.
Okay, that's good.
And
Logic is good.
I think if you could keep, I know you said you're working on it, getting the interfaces between the AirWave platform and your controller configuration to be similar. Whichever direction you're going is great because like when I'm getting our guys to look at it, I don't get them to ever manage from AirWave because it's at times difficult enough to get them to learn the controller interface, and then it's completely different here, right? So I just tell them just monitor from here. So if you can get them the same, that would be really, really good.
Got it.
Yeah, that effect seems to, that's not limited to Aruba by any stretch, and it's kind of maddening that it is that way, but, you know, back to your question though, I mean, if the thing is pouty, you're not waiting all day for things between clicks and accurate and timely, and that gap isn't so drastic that you want to beat your head against the wall.
I think that's, I mentioned it earlier, but I've used DNSs where, and modern ones as well, but that were maybe Java based or whatever the back end was, but it is maddening, like you're trying to drill down and something that really should be quick, you know, isn't to locate a piece of information. And most, I guess, newer NMSs, wireless NMSs are, you know, similarly fairly quick, but
Yeah.
I think that's pretty critical.
Yeah, I mean, the related version is, you know, you have different levels of expertise within a wireless networking team, operations, security people, etc. So they usually don't prefer one-size-fits-all model. So that's why there's a lot of focus on folders, different roles of users, different tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 support. So managing that takes a bit of time, but it's kind of a must-have. Like, I mean, for a management tool like AirWave, yes, we build the features, and then on top of that, we're trying to figure out role-based assignments of that feature and how it ties to the folder-based architecture. So it takes a bit of time, but I think that approaching the problem as a tiered problem rather than one-size-fits-all usually helps us. I don't know what you guys think about that. You know, a help desk view, a tier 2 view, somebody who can just take a look at alerts and triggers, somebody who can just take a look at rapids, somebody who can only do RF planning, you know.
I think you need that, especially when you get into looking at like multi-tenant. I mean, that also fits within that model too, right? You have different audiences that want to see different sets of things within the interface, so you're really going to show them that. Like, your security guy might not want to look at the SDR, but he might want to look at the rapids view and have a similar sort of set of graphs like this showing him an instant view of what type of security problems there are on the network, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Question on the visual RF from your side. Are you only getting data from AP to AP, or is there any client-based information coming back up saying how I see the world?
All the data we get comes from the actual AP itself. And so what we do is we get the ratio of data from the AP to the client, which is the RSSI score or the SNR score, and we use those. And we also attenuate based on AP to AP noise. So we can kind of say, oh, so there's no connection in this area, so maybe the client's more this way.
Kind of extending, I think, 11K and other standards, we are looking to incorporate that data to, you know, get better, accurate from the client perspective, right, is kind of where you're asking about.
Yeah.
Client. We also have something that some of our customers use. We have an AMC client that runs on a Windows laptop that can actually be used for training clients in terms of the location and, you know, placing them correctly based on the SNR. So we do multiple.
Is that SKU?
That's actually free for all our
It's
customers.
built in, actually. So if you go to the documentation tab here, you're actually going to have this download AirWave management client. This is like the poor man's Rapids device. You can use it to do your Rapids work for you, or you can actually use it as kind of like your signal guide. So this client's not moving ever again. I can train it in that location on visual RF. I can say do a survey from this client. So maybe you're in a hospital, there's like those little rollaway computers that don't move that often. You can probably train that, and that'll train your signal for like the close area.
Thank you.
One of those hidden gems in AirWave, right?
Just as a general question, is there you mentioned data to 11K, has there been a lot of ability to actually get that kind of information from the clients. A lot of clients actually implementing support for K, so you can pull that type of data from them.
Is that something you have?
11K.
Yeah.
Is that something on the agenda?
We can talk about it after we finish our discussion, but once we have 11K, 11V supporting clients, once they return that information to us, controller will actually use that information for a lot of different reasons, which will get pulled down to AirWave, for sure.
Yeah, no, that was a little bit different from what I was saying. I was asking more if you're seeing a lot of clients supporting it rather than are you.
Oh, I see. I don't know if we have done a good survey of that. It's a good idea to see if there's more capable clients.
Going to start supporting it. Our clients that are supporting voice enterprise, which I think was mentioned earlier.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know if we're reporting on that yet or collecting that information, as a matter of fact.
So
All right.
There-
Sam?
there's some inconsistencies in the UI, like where the client lists show up, like do they show up in a pop-up list, or do they show up at the bottom of the screen, or things like that. Are you expecting to make all those changes gradually in small minor versions, or are you planning on overhauling and unifying those views and then making it like a major release change? What does that look like from a roadmap? Do we expect it to be gradual and see, kind of more inconsistencies kind of before it gets better, or is that going to be overhauled all at once?
Got it. We'll probably look to doing one overhaul, and part of the direction is, I'm sorry, let me have turned it on. I'm not a big fan of it. The one thing we've done is, in the next release, we're looking at a overhaul of the navigation with the controller side. We're trying to unify the UIs and get an effort towards that. So you will probably see a next release or in a couple of releases a kind of overhaul, but individual pages will probably take a while. You'll see a transition. It's not something we're going to be able to change in a matter of 6 months, but we'll be gradually changing it. Most of the dashboards and the monitoring screens might change first. Some of the configuration screens will change, and then we'll look at the entire picture.
I hear a lot of vendors talk about customer feedback and taking changes, but do you guys actually do that for this platform?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Absolutely.
A lot of vendors talk about customer feedback and taking the feedback to make changes. I mean, you guys
Absolutely.
are actively doing that?
We
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
We're always iterating over it. The two things we always do is existing features and their feedback, and just customer RFEs. Those take actually almost, a bulk of the release. If I could bring up my next release slides, I have 2 slides worth of what the customer feature requests are and how we're building. For example, customer would say something like auto acknowledge up and down alerts. And it's on my idea portal. I look at what my top feature requests are. We actually talk to the customers. We do have a personal relationship, and we're able to get feedback on what they want to see and implement those features.
Man, you're really starting to sell me on this.
So here was one that was actually a customer request. It was uptime by device. This was added specifically for a customer. And we found that it had usability outside of just that customer scenario. And that's where you're going to find that when a feature gets voted up with enough votes, then we actually really can push it through.
And what does uptime by device do?
So this uptime by device, it's like, so when you do your reports, you want to see how long your network devices have been up. And so you actually see like, okay, this device has been up for 100% of the time. What does that mean? Is that 100% of when I plugged it in, or 100% of that reporting period? And that's what this report actually does.
Some of the other things we've done is, until the customer stored as PDF reports, it was long coming. We implemented that. Was the top feature request we addressed. For example, we have CSV reports that came as a customer request. So all these things being incorporated to the product as fast as we can. We allocate a bunch of percentage of the release on the customer requests themselves.
Now, silly question. So I have some 6,500 cats where my WISMs sit into, and I want to monitor the traffic on those ports. Today I have to use Nagios or SolarWinds. Can we do that in this?
There's actually a port usage report that can go back to it, as long as those devices feed back on the MIB the data that we need.
But requested, right?
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. In fact, the new devices is something that we keep up as far as the multi-vendor. By the next release that Cisco comes up with, the Cisco 1600 to the 2600 APs, we add them into AirWave. We add the HP devices, and we keep up with our multi-vendor support for devices.
You just highlight one more report. The top clients by total megabytes used. That was another report that was requested by customers. And this was because, every time you look at your amp and your network, you want to know, who are my top talkers? And this is how you get it. And you can do it by folder, or you can do it in general, the whole network.
Okay, all right, guys. So, for the sake of time, Rob, Sujata, thank you. Thumbs up.